Hello dear students, Assalamu alaikum. This video is about the model reading and explanation of the 7th lesson, packing. Students, just see before you read. Do you like going on trips? What kind of trips do you enjoy most? How do you feel about having to pack for a trip? Have you ever discovered on a trip that you have forgotten to pack a few things you very much need, or that you can't find them easily? Does this make you angry, or does it make you laugh at yourself? Students, when you go on a trip, then you have to pack your bag and baggage. Here, the author asks what you feel when you forget to pack that things which is very important. Does it make you angry, or does it irritate you, or you laugh at yourself? Now read the description of how the author and his friends pack. His friends, in this story there are four characters. The author Jerome K Jerome, his two friends George and Harris, and one important character, Mo.Rizwan, a dog. Student, just see this story. I said I would pack. I hear the author Jerome K Jerome. I rather pride myself on my packing, rather firmly or before. Packing is one of those many things that I feel I know more about than any other person. Living. Living? Human being. It surprises me myself sometimes how many such things there are. I impressed the fact upon George and Harris and told them that they had better leave the whole matter entirely, completely to me. They fell into this suggestion, fell into accepted. They accepted this suggestion with readiness, fast. That had something uncanny, odd, weird, strange, something uncanny about it. George spread himself over the easy chair and Harris cocked. Cocked, put one leg on over second leg. Harris cocked his leg on the table. Students, the author Jerome K. Jerome prides his packing because he thinks he's a good packer and he knows better than his two friends George and Harris the packing style, the packing skill. So he suggested to his friend George and Harris that leave the whole matter of packing to me. His friend George and Harris accepted his suggestion, and George went to easy chair and Harris cocked himself on the table. This way hardly what I intended. What I had meant, of course, was that I should boss the job and that Harris and George should worker, potter about do something important things, potter about under my direction. I pushing them aside every now and then with, oh, you, here, let me do it. There you are, Simple enough. Really teaching them, as you might say. Actually, the author Jerome K Jerome prides his packing skill, and he wanted to show his packing skill to George and Harris. Actually, his intention was that teaching them the packing style, but they are taking it in the way they did irritated me. Irritated, made angry. There is something does irritated me more than seeing other people sitting about doing nothing when I am working. Actually, the author intention was to teach the packing style to George and Harris. So he gave a suggestion: leave the whole matter of packing, and George and Harris accepted, but the way which he accepted it irritated the author. So he tells a story. I lived with a man once who used to make me mad that way. He should loll on the sofa, loll on spirit, loll on sofa, watch me doing things by the hour together. He said it did him real good to look on at me, messing about, missing fault. Now I am not like that. I can't sit still and see another man slaving and working. I want to get up and pretend and walk round with my hands in my pockets and tell him what to do. It is my energetic nature. I can't help it. Slaving puppet. Superintend, direct, or supervise. Here, the author tells a story. Once he lived with a man who lolled on the sofa and watched him doing things and missing. He used to say he enjoyed to see him, but the author cannot loll on the sofa. He stands up and busy in work or to pretend the work. It is his energetic nature. However, I did not say anything but started the packing. It seemed a longer job than I had thought it was going to be, but I got the bag finished at last, and I sat on it and strapped it. The author did not say a word to George and Harris. He started his work, and at last he packed all the things. Just as he was going to strap the bag, then at that time, "Aren't you going to put the boots in?" said Harry. Harry asked a question. "And you going to put the boots in?" And I looked round and found I had forgotten them. The author forgotten. The author had forgotten the boots in. That just like Harris. He could not have said a word until I had got the bag shut and strapped. Of course, and George laughed. One of those irritating, senseless laughs of his. They do make me so wild. Actually, Harris habitual to realize that time for seeing the fault. So he realized the author he had forgotten boots in. when he was going to finish his work. And George laughed at it. Those senseless laugh, because they tried to make the author wild, mad. I opened the bag and packed the boots in. And then just as I was going to close it, a horrible idea happened, or came to me. Had I packed my toothbrush? I don't know how it is, but I never do know whether I have packed my toothbrush, because my toothbrush is a thing that haunts me, that troubles me when I am traveling, and makes my life a misery. I dream that I haven't packed it and wake up in a cold perspiration and get out of bed and hunt for it. And in the morning, I pack it before I have used it and have to unpack again to get it. And it is always the last thing I turned out of the bag. And then I repack and forget it, and have to rush upstairs for it at the last moment and carry it to the railway station wrapped up in my pocket handkerchief. Handkerchief hanky. The author just going to close the bag after packing the boots. But at this time, he remembered. Did he pack his toothbrush or not? Actually, the author says, my toothbrush is a thing that troubles me always. Because when I need it, then I pack it. I have to reopen the bag to find it. Then I pack the bag before pack it. So my toothbrush always haunts me, troubles me. Of course, I had to turn every mortal things out now, and of course, I could not find it. I rummaged in a disorder, such in a hurried way, the things up into much the same state that they must have been before the world was created, in a disorder. And when chaos, disorder reigned, of course, I found George and Harris 18 times over, but I couldn't find my own. I put the things back one by one and held everything up and shook it. Then I found it inside a boot. I repacked once more. The author just going to close the bag after packing the boots. Then a horrible idea occurred in his mind. Had he packed his toothbrush? Because he says his toothbrush is a trouble thing. Always he forgets to pack his toothbrush. So he began to search his toothbrush. So he had to put up all the things which he arranged. So he had to search his toothbrush. So he had to put all the things, and he disarranged all the things he's packing. He found George and Harris 18 times, but he could not find his own. At last he found his toothbrush in a boat. Then, after that, he repacked once more. When I had finished, George asked if the soap was in. I said I didn't care a hang whether the soap was in or whether it wasn't. And I slammed the bag shut and strapped it, and found that I had packed my spectacles in it and had to reopen it. It got shut up finally at 10:05 p.m. and then there remained the hamper to do. When the author finished his work, then George asked if the soap was in. Actually, George realized if the soap was in or not. The author said he didn't care a hang whether the soap was in or whether it wasn't. He slammed the bag shut and strapped it. Then he found he had packed his spectacles, so he had to reopen the bag again. And at last, finally, 10:05 p.m., the work had been finished, and the ton was a big hamper, and the ton was George and Harris. They had to pack this big hamper. Harry said that we should be wanting to start in less than 12 hours time, and thought that he and George, he, Harris, and George had better do the rest. And I agreed and sat down, and they had a go. Because the author knew they were inexperienced packer, so they would start the packing and disturb the things. They began in a light-hearted spirit, evidently clearly intending to show me how to do it. First, before the author wanted to show his packing skill to George and Harris, now George and Harris tried to show their packing style to the author Jerome K Jerome. How to pack it, I made no comment. I only waited, with the exception of George. Exception, slender as person. With the exception of George, Harris is the worst packer in this world. Actually, George was the bad packer. But Harris also was the worst packer in the world. And I looked at the piles of plates and cups and kettles and bottles and jars and pies and stoves and cakes and tomatoes, etc., and felt that the things would soon become exciting. It did. They started with breaking a cup. That was the first thing they did. They did that just to show you what they could do and to get you interest, because they were inexperienced baker. Then Harris packed the strawberry jam on top of tomato and squeezed it, and they had to pick out the tomato with a teaspoon. They started their work in exciting mode. They broke the cups. They were putting heavy things. They were putting soft things under heavy things. So Harris packed the strawberry jam on top of the tomato and squeezed it. And then it was George's turn. He trod on the butter. I didn't say anything, but I came over and sat on the edge of the table and watched them. It irritated them. Irritated, made angry. More than anything I could have said. I felt that it made them nervous and excited, and they stepped on things and put things behind them and then couldn't find them when they wanted them, and they packed the pies at the bottom, pies soft things, pies at the bottom, and put heavy things on top, and squeezed the pies. They upset salt over everything, and as for the butter, I never saw two men do more with 1 and 2 pence worth of butter in my whole life than they did. After George had got it off his slipper, they tried to put it in the kettle. It wouldn't go in, and what was in wouldn't come out. They did scrape, clean it out at last, and put it down on a chair, and Harris sat on it, and it stuck to him, and they went looking for it all over the room. They started their work in exciting, so they disturbed the things. George put on his legs, put on trod, put on the butter. He stepped on the butter. Then the butter scraped clean up. George put it on vacant seat, and Harris sat on it. Then George and Harris looked the butter here and there. They were searching the butter in every corner, but he couldn't find the butter. I shall take my oath I put it down on the chair, said George, starting at the empty seat. I saw you do it myself, not a minute ago, said Harris. Then they started round the room again looking for it, and then they met again in the center and started at one another. Most extraordinary things I ever heard of, said George. So mysterious, said Harris. It is a magic. Then George got round at the back of Harris and sighed. Why, here it is all the time, he exclaimed indignantly. Where? cried Harris, spinning around. Stand still, can't you? Roared George, flying after him. They were looking or searching for the butter, here and there in every corner, but he couldn't find it. At last, they met in a center. Then George saw the back portion of Harris and found the butter stuck on his back portion. So he cried out, here it is all time, the butter here. So Harris asked the question, where we are in spinning around. But George said, stand still, can't you? And then butter cleaned up from his back portion, and they got it off and packed it in the teapot. Montmorency was in it all. Montmorency was a dog. Of course, Montmorency's ambition in life is to get in the way and be one-eyed. If he can squirm in everywhere, be one-eyed, here get scolded. If he can squirm in anywhere where he particularly is not wanted and be a perfect nuisance and make people mad and have things thrown at his head, then he feels his day has not been wasted. To get somebody to stumble over him and curse him steadily for an hour is his highest aim and object. And when he has succeeded in accomplishing complete this, his conceit becomes quite unbearable. Conceit, his pride, quite unbearable. Montmorency was a dog. His life ambition was to get in the way and be sworn at. He always interrupted in the work of any person. So he tried to make the people mad. So he came and sat down on the things. He came and sat down on things just when they were wanted to be packed, and he labored under the fixed belief that whenever Harris or George reached out their hand for anything, it was his cool, damp nose that they wanted. He put his legs into the jam and he worried, disturbed the teaspoons. And he pretended that the lemons were red and got into the hamper and killed 3 of them before Harris could land him with fry pan. Montmorency came and sat down on the things. George Harris, who put the things behind them when they tried to find it again, but he caught the nose of Montmorency. So Montmorency disturbed George and Harris. Harris said, I encouraged him. I didn't encourage him. A dog like that does not or doesn't want any encouragement. It's the natural, original sin that inborn in him that make him do things like that. The packing was done at 12:50, and Harry sat on the big hamper and said he hoped nothing would be found broken. George said that if anything was broken, it was broken, which reflection seemed to comfort him, easy him, comfort, easy him. He also said he was ready for bed. We were all ready for bed. Harris was to sleep with us that night, and we went upstairs. We tossed for beds, and Harris had to sleep with me. He said, do you prefer the inside or outside, Jerome? Jerome. I said, I generally prefer to sleep inside a bed. Harris said, it was odd, strange. George said, what time shall I wake you fellows, friends? Harris said, 7. I said, no, 6, because I wanted to write some letters. Harris and I had a bit of a difference over this matter, but at last split the difference, removed the difference, and said 6:30. Wake us at 6:30, George, we said. George made no answer, and we found on going over that he had been asleep for some time. So we placed the bath where he could tumble into it on getting out in the morning and went to bed over self. Montmorency came and sat down. He disturbed George and Harris. So he disturbed the teaspoons and destroyed 3 lemons. But at last, packing had been done 12:50, and Harris sat on the big hamper and said he hoped nothing would be found broken. George said if anything was broken, it was broken. Then they felt relaxed. And after packing, George, Harris, and the author Jerome K Jerome went to sleep. Okay, students, thank you.